In the late 1960s, something new emerged in music. Strange guitar sounds, unusual voices, and lyrics that stop talking about the same old love stuff.
Go ask Alice when she's 10 feet tall.
These are 10 songs that sparked the birth of the psychedelic sound. Tracks that felt weird but uplifting. The kind that made you feel like you were flying and seeing the world in a whole new way. Number 10. White Rabbit, Jefferson Airplane. Grace Slick wrote White Rabbit in the mid-60s after taking acid and rereading Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass.
One pill makes you larger.
She loved how strange and dreamlike those books were and turned that feeling into a song, using children's stories about potions and pills to talk directly to the growing drug culture of the time.
Go ask Alice when she's 10 feet tall.
She was listening a lot to Miles Davis's Sketches of Spain and borrowed that slow Spanish-style build mixed with the one-way crescendo of Ravel's Bolero to create a march that only ever moves forward. Before Jefferson Airplane, she had already sung White Rabbit with her earlier band The Great Society, and when she joined the airplane, she brought it with her.
When the men on the chessboard get up and
Released in 1967, it climbed to number 8 on the Billboard Hot 100 and quickly became one of the key songs of the Summer of Love. Radio mostly let it through, even though the drug references weren't exactly subtle. Grace later said, Feed Your Head was about both drugs and books. A jab at parents who read their kids trippy fairy tales and then complained about 60s psychedelics. Since then, it's turned up in movies from Platoon to The Matrix Resurrections, always as the sound of falling into a strange, beautiful rabbit hole. 9. Time, Pink Floyd. Time feels like a clock turned into a rock song. The famous intro with all the chiming clocks came from engineer Alan Parsons, who recorded each clock separately in an antique shop for a test project and later dropped the whole collage into the track. Under Nick Mason's drum build, that ticking you hear is Roger Waters plucking muted bass strings to sound like a mechanical heartbeat. It's the only song on The Dark Side of the Moon credited to all 4 members, even though Waters wrote the lyrics himself. He was in his late 20s and suddenly realizing how fast life was moving, which is why the song sounds like a midlife crisis arriving early. The album went on to sit on the Billboard charts for over 800 weeks, a permanent resident in record collections and hi-fi showrooms.
Waiting for someone or something to show you the way.
Structurally, Time is like a mini journey. The clock collage, the tom drum intro, the heavy verses, David Gilmour's soaring solo, and then the gentle breathe reprise at the end. It quietly teaches the album's main point. The days slip by while you're busy, and by the time you notice, a lot of your time is already gone.
Hear the softly spoken magic spell.
Number 8, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, The Beatles. This one started with a drawing. John Lennon's young son Julian came home from school with a picture of his classmate and told him it was Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. Lennon loved the phrase and built a song around it. A floating dream full of tangerine trees and marmalade skies.
Picture yourself in a boat on a river.
When Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band came out, fans quickly noticed the initials in the title spelled LSD and assumed it was a drug code.
Cellophane flowers of yellow and green.
Lennon and McCartney always said the title was a coincidence, though they admitted the music itself had a strong psychedelic feel. That mood comes from the way the song keeps shifting. The verses feel waltzy and weightless, then the chorus kicks in more like a regular pop song, almost like cutting between different scenes in a film.
Lucy in the sky with diamonds.
It became one of the key psychedelic Beatles tracks, mixing childlike images with surreal colors and strange landscapes. Lennon later described it as Alice in Wonderland set to rock, more of a weird fairy tale than a straight drug admission. An invitation into a world where nothing has to look or feel normal anymore.
A rocking horse, people eat marshmallow pie.
Number 7. Seven Nation Army, The White Stripes. By the early 2000s, rock production had become very polished and heavy. The White Stripes went the other way, just guitar, drums, and a lot of empty space. Jack White had carried the phrase Seven Nation Army around since he was a kid, his way of saying Salvation Army, and finally used it for a song that felt like a private battle against gossip and pressure. The famous bass line isn't a bass at all, and it's Jack's guitar running through a pedal that drops it an octave because the band refused to add a real bass player.
I'm gonna fight 'em all. A seven-nation army couldn't hold.
The lyrics talk about wanting to leave town as rumors and attention close in, but it's the riff that took on a life of its own. In 2003, fans of Belgian football club Brugge started chanting the riff at a match after hearing the song in a bar, and it spread from there to stadiums all over the world.
Back and forth through my mind behind a cigarette.
Now it's sung at games, protests, and rallies by people who might not even know the song's name. It's proof that you don't need a huge arrangement to feel hypnotic, just one unforgettable line played over and over until it becomes bigger than the band who wrote it. Number 6. Mr. Blue Sky, Electric Light Orchestra. Mr. Blue Sky is what Pure Relief sounds like. Jeff Lynne wrote it in the Swiss Alps while working on Out of the Blue. For nearly 2 weeks, it was nothing but clouds and rain, and he couldn't finish anything. Then one morning, the sky finally cleared, the sun came out, and he said a whole batch of songs, including Mr. Blue Sky, poured out of him that same day. On the album, it closes a 4-song suite called Concerto for a Rainy Day. And this track is the moment when everything finally brightens. It mixes rock, pop, and classical ideas. Stacked harmonies, live strings, hand claps, silly sound effects, vocoder voices, and bright synths, all carefully arranged to feel like a cartoon sunrise in music form. Under all the fun, the chords and changes are more complex than they first sound, which is why the song stays fresh and doesn't wear out. Over the years, it turned into shorthand for happiness itself, used in movies, sports events, and clips anytime someone wants to show a tough situation breaking open into joy and blue skies again. Number 5. Purple Haze, Jimi Hendrix. Purple Haze is the moment guitar rock gets thrown into another dimension. Jimi Hendrix said the idea came after a vivid dream where he was walking under the sea, surrounded by a purple fog. He later explained that the song wasn't just about drugs. To him, it was also about being completely overwhelmed by love or attraction, so confused by someone that you can't think straight. The opening noise, that snarling clashing chord, became known as the Hendrix chord, and guitarists have been chasing it ever since. Hendrix originally wrote a much longer set of lyrics, closer to a short sci-fi story, but cut them down into punchy lines to make it work as a single.
Tomorrow or just the end of time.
Released in 1967, it hit the UK top 5 and set up his legendary appearance at the Monterey Pop Festival, where he famously set his guitar on fire. Purple Haze turned distortion and feedback from mistakes into tools, a new musical language that made the guitar sound like it was melting, bending, and talking all at once. Number 4. Kashmir, Led Zeppelin. Kashmir was Led Zeppelin's answer to anyone who thought they were running out of ideas. Jimmy Page and John Bonham came up with the main riff and drum pattern in the studio on a day when John Paul Jones was late. And what started as a simple jam slowly grew into one of their most towering songs. Robert Plant wrote the lyrics after a long drive through a remote desert area of Morocco, not Kashmir itself. None of the band had actually been there yet, which is why the song feels more like an imagined landscape than a real place. When Jones later added strings and brass over Page's 12-string guitar and Bonham's huge drums, the track turned into something closer to a movie score than a standard rock song. The main riff loops in a pattern that fights slightly with the drum accents, making it feel like it goes on forever, like a mirage that never quite gets closer. Plant and Page have both called it one of their proudest achievements, and for many fans, it's the song that proves Zeppelin could be heavy, hypnotic, and deeply psychedelic without using a single synth. Number 3. Space Oddity, David Bowie. Space Oddity started as a strange little space song and slowly turned into one of Bowie's defining moments.
Ground control to me is on.
He timed its release to July 1969, just as Apollo 11 was heading to the moon, and the BBC used it during their coverage, turning Major Tom's Lonely Mission into an unofficial soundtrack for the space age.
Take your protein pills and put your
Major Tom was loosely inspired by 2001, A Space Odyssey, and by Bowie's own feelings of being cut off from normal life. The track is built like a short movie. A quiet intro, a countdown, liftoff, and then drifting further and further away, all inside about 5 minutes. Bowie thought about it visually as well as musically, which is why every section feels like a new scene.
ground control to Major Tom.
It reached the UK top 5 and came back on later reissues, as people rediscovered it in the 70s and 80s.
Now it's time to leave the capsule if you dare.
What makes it psychedelic isn't wild effects so much as mood. The moment where wonder turns to isolation, when planet Earth is blue and there's nothing I can do, sounds both amazed and heartbreakingly resigned.
Turn with blue, and there's nothing I can do.
Number 2. Tomorrow Never Knows, The Beatles. Tomorrow Never Knows is where psychedelic rock really takes off into something new. It was the first song the band started for Revolver, and at first they called it Mark I, as if it were a test machine rather than a regular track.
Turn off your mind, relax and float down.
John Lennon told producer George Martin he wanted his voice to sound like the Dalai Lama chanting from a mountaintop. So they ran his vocal through a spinning Leslie speaker, making it swirl around the mix like a moving echo. The whole song sits on essentially one chord, with Ringo Starr playing a steady hypnotic drum pattern that barely changes. Over that, they layered tape loops they'd made at home. Backwards guitars, sped-up orchestras, and strange seagull noises, and flying them in by hand on the mixing desk years before sampling became a standard tool. Lennon's lyrics were inspired by Timothy Leary's The Psychedelic Experience, which itself was based on the Tibetan Book of the Dead, so the song turns into a short guide about letting go of ego and fear. Critics at the time weren't even sure what to call it. It didn't sound like pop, rock, or anything familiar. Many later pointed to it as the moment the Beatles jumped fully into the future. Number 1. Lucky Man, Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Lucky Man began as a simple song a 12-year-old wrote and turned into one of prog rock's most haunting moments. Greg Lake came up with it using the first 4 chords he learned on guitar and kept it in his pocket for years.
He had white horses and lady.
When Emerson, Lake and Palmer were finishing their debut album and needed one more track, he played it almost as an afterthought, and it ended up becoming their breakout hit.
And waiting by the door.
Keith Emerson wasn't convinced at first. He left while Lake recorded the acoustic parts, then came back and added a Moog synthesizer solo at the end almost as a test. That solo, recorded in one take while Emerson was still figuring the instrument out, became one of the earliest and most famous synth solos in rock, So much so that later keyboards even included a Lucky Man sound preset. Most of the song stays quiet and folk-like. Gentle guitar, clear vocal, and a melody that feels almost medieval. But the story underneath is harsh. The lucky man who has everything goes to war and dies, and all his money can't change that.
What a lucky man he was.
Fans heard spirituality, some heard science fiction in the Moog's wail, but Lake always said it was really about fate and how privilege doesn't protect you from loss. By the final verse and that drifting synth, it feels less like a simple ballad and more like a haunting little warning wrapped inside a dream. The psychedelic era wasn't just a phase, and it was a question. What else can music do? These songs expanded minds. They blurred the line between studio and imagination, between lyric and dream, between sound and silence. And even after the lava lamps dimmed, their echoes never stopped. If you enjoyed this trip through sound and color, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and tap the bell so you don't miss the next journey. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.